Hi, this is Handel B9. I'm doing a little session here about the basics of building a car. I get asked quite a bit on via PMs about tunes I might have got up for sure, etc. Problem is the way T10's gone about it and done this shear front, I think it's made it I don't know, it just doesn't seem as good for your painters and your tuners. You know, you used to be able to go to somebody's storefront and just see everything that they'd done, whether they'd paints, vinyls, tunes, etc. You could see it all there in one place, and it was easy to know. Whereas now, you know, you kind of need to know where these guys are basing themselves and keep an eye on it. Any threads where they're posting up about regular releases that they're doing. So half the time, I just can't be bothered putting stuff up to share. Different places I put a few things up which are open source, which I don't mind doing sometimes. There are some cars which I won't put up open source because those I've spent quite a bit of time tuning. I might put them up for sure. Like there's one coming out soon where I've been playing with a Fiat Abarth for quite some time. So I've tweaked it to do a Storm Island edition. That'll be going up for sure soon. I just need to create a video for it. But then there's other ones that, you know, that I won't put up for sure. Those are my like little gems kind of thing. When certain people keep trying to beat me on the rivals, I'll use different cars. But then as a backup, you know, if I can't find anything that I can knock them down with, then I'll pull out my little Mighty Midget or whatever and do them basically. Now I've actually already recorded this once, but for some reason I don't know why Twitch cut it short, so I'm having to record this again. Basically what I was going to do was build a basic tune on a D-Class car, a front wheel drive, and when I went to my garage there was a Sirocco S which I hadn't played around with, so I decided I was going to tune that. You know, build it, tune it, explain it, blah blah blah, and all that kind of stuff. So, as you see now, this has already been built up, and I'm actually sat in the car. When I went to upgrade it, because it's a car which hasn't got a great deal of power, it's gonna do nothing on your any kind of speed track. So straight away you think, right, I might as well aim it at some kind of course where it's nice and tight. Plenty of tight turns where it'll need that grip, not too many, you know, power straights, which will, you know, negate the fact that I've got loads of grip round the corner and then I lose it all going down the straights. So I'm going to keep it I kept it front wheel drive, and I did it basically as an out and out kind of grip tune, I suppose, with the aero that I've put on it. Now, the parts I always put on for these Rally Edition ones is your suspension. It's a must, really. You can get away with it, but the problem you've got with some of the jumps, you know, what you're getting if you haven't got some decent suspension on, as you land, your car can bounce off in all kinds of directions. It still does to an extent with the Rally suspension, but not as much if you have the Rally suspension, you know, on it. Whether I'm doing it for road or on the rally stages, I always put anti-roll bars on because I'm doing it for you know, kind of a small track, not got a lot of power, so I want some decent acceleration. So I've reduced the weight. The diff, no matter whether I'm doing it for road, rally, whatever, I always put a diff on. The gearbox, I've put the race gearbox on. Basically, you know, it's kind of the same. I don't think it's as heavy as the rally ones. The rally ones is just near enough the same kind of thing, but it's already got some short gear ratios set up for you if you don't want to tweak it yourself. but as you can see there, that's the difference. If I'd put a rally one on, I would have to be losing something else from my car. The tyres, with the amount of PI that I had, I just ended up upgrading ever so slightly on my tyres, because it did make a bit, you know, quite a difference. If you look at the handling, stock it would have been 5.6. Just upgrading it that one knocked it up to 6.3. For most front wheel drive or wheel drive cars, I tend to put wider tyres on the back just for the traction. Especially, you know, these hatchback kind of cars, you tend to find that it is quite hard to control the sliding on the back of these cars. So, you know, any help you can get, use it. Originally I did run it without any Forza aero on, but you know, if I'm going to do it for small twisty tracks, I might as well put the aero on it. Putting the rear aero on originally knocked it down. Well, you can see there the difference. It knocked it down about 10 PI, I think. Unfortunately, you know, even knocking it down, it didn't leave me a great deal of PI to spend on power. So I ended up putting the supercharger on, because when I compared it to the turbo, you know, I was kind of getting a little bit more horsepower for the PI I was spending by having a supercharger on it. I think in the engine upgrades, there you go, I upgraded it by 1. With the PI that I had left, I didn't bother really doing anything else, because it was costing way too much PI for very little power. Look at the state, it costs you 13 PI for 3 horsepower. So with the PI that was left, I did my usual thing of look for items that loses weight. So that's things like your brakes, your drive line is another one. As you can see, it's got different rims on. They might not look that nice, but I just bunged them on because I knew they were the lightest rims. There are a few, but these are just blatantly obvious, so I can go to them straight away instead of searching for the other ones. And what I not finally do when I'm on about, you know, sometimes I might be on 500, and I'll come to the clutch and I might just be able to whack one thing on, and sometimes, you know, like there it's only £1, but on other cars, you know, you might be like on D500, think, oh, I can't stick anything else on. You come to your clutch, you find out you can go up 1, and it doesn't alter your PI, and sometimes it's you know, it's £4 you're losing. So I spent the remainder of the PI on weight loss items. I then went into the tuning section. We've got no telemetry in Forza Horizon, so it's a bit hard to know what the optimal PSI is. But I generally stick to, like, you know, 27s, 28s. I think there's quite a few people who stick to that kind of PSI figures. The gearing, I didn't actually touch any of the individual gears. It seemed to be spread quite nice. All I did was move the final drive, because I think it was originally, what was it? I think it was like right over here. So all I did is I altered the final drive to somewhere where I thought it would be kind of okay, and it actually, you know, it turned out to be quite okay. The suspension, if you're just looking to try and build yourself a car to get you from start to finish, you know, when you put a race suspension on or rally suspension, you know, normally they kind of decent figures that are already on there. It's only when you're like hot lapping on your rivals boards and you're looking for those extra tenths or less, that's when you'll start to really fine tweak it. So I think most of the times these come in at about minus 0.5. I tend to just have them about that kind of figures. Just putting a little bit of camber on my wheels. The toe I don't really bother with. Sometimes if I'm finding the car, I've done quite a bit to the car and I still can't get it to turn in properly, I might just give it a tiny bit of toe out, you know, as you can see there, it kind of brings the backs of the tyres closer together than the fronts, and it's supposed to increase turning response. So, you know, a few times I have give it a tiny bit of toe out. Anti-roll bars, definite. You always end up going to tweak these a lot, especially for the rally. The rally, they're very stiff. I think when we I first put them on here, they were about midpoint, with the front stiffer than the rears. Now with front wheel drive and all wheel drive, you'll tend to find that you'll end up having the front softer than the rears, because if you have most of the time, if you have it too stiff at the front and not at the rear, you'll really struggle to actually turn your car in. So I did have it. I did have the rears quite a bit stiffer than the front, but when I test drove the car, I actually found that the back was sliding a bit too much, so I kept lowering it down until I thought, you know, that's probably about as much as I can do out of the anti-roll bars. This is what I mean about the springs. You know, the settings they give you is kind of bob on anyway. You know, when you rally in, you want them as soft as possible, and as soon as you put them on, these are the figures it actually gives you. And I've not touched them at all though. The dampening figures I did touch ever slightly, because, you know, I altered the anti-roll bar, found I still needed a bit of grip, tiny bit of grip at the back. So what I did is I reduced the rear rebound and the rear bump to give it that extra little bit of grip at the rear of the car. If I felt as though that I needed some more grip at the front of the car, what I might have done is, instead of reducing the rears, I might have reduced the fronts instead. So that's, you know, when it's biased like that, it's supposedly chucking some grip at the rear. If the figures were the other way around, it'd be supposedly chucking some extra grip at the front. Now I've got the aero on. Now a lot of people, you know, kind of throw hissy fits with the Forza aero. If I'm going to just park a car up in a car meet and I want to look pretty, then fine, you don't put the Forza aero on. But if you're trying to get from start to finish as fast as you can, sometimes the aero is going to help you do that. Now, like, I put the Forza aero on at the rear and it gave me an extra 10 psi to play with. I've had cars before where I've ummed and ahed about whether I should have the aero on it, and, you know, with the PI that it gives you to play with, I could put some more power upgrades on, and alright, I might have been ever so slightly slower on some of the longer straights, but where I was down that tiny bit on the straights, I was more than capable of passing and increasing my lead over, you know, my Ghost kind of thing, if it was a Ghost which had no aero on. And also, when you've put the aero on, you don't have to have it at its maximum settings. You can put it all the way down to its minimum settings, which is what I've done here. I found the Sirocco actually turned in quite good, so I don't particularly need some extra downforce on the front, so I've put that to the minimum. Whereas the back, just for peace of mind, it was a little bit, even with the suspension tweaks and the anti-roll bar, it still felt as though it was going to slide a bit too much. So I increased the back ever so slightly. If it were too much, you'd soon know, because as soon as you started to try and turn a corner, you'd find you was getting too much understeer, and then, you know, you've just got way too much downforce on your back end, and it's affecting your turning in. Brakes I put on. Now, with front wheel drive or wheel drive cars, I tend to favour rear braking force. It's just so then if I give it a bit of a dab of the brakes during mid corner, it'll actually help with the front turning into the corner a lot better. The brake pressure is your own preference. If you're braking and you tend to be locking up, you know, try reducing your braking pressure. What you can do is, as you get used to it, then you can start to increase it until you kind of find your desired level. The differential on your front wheel drives, you know, in previous Forzas you always had it quite high. You know, it's all about getting the front of the car to turn into a corner. A lot of the times with front wheel drive cars, you get a lot of understeer when you start giving it plenty of power, and the idea is you're getting your diff to kick in a lot quicker. And what that's doing is your outside wheel will carry on spinning, whereas your inside wheel will not, and that's supposedly helping you to get round take the corner a little bit tighter. It's not pushing you out to the outside of the corner. So a lot of the times on front wheel drive cars, I might have it way up to 80. You know, you can try it yourself, get in your car, have it on a low diff setting, go around some tight corners, see how the car you know, behaves with the nose of it is it's driving you to the outside of the corner. Increase your diff setting, and then you'll see that the more you increase it, the less you're moving to the outside of the corner as you're trying to give it some gas. The decel isn't a big thing on your front wheel drive cars. I then originally took my car to I'd done a little bit of driving around out in the open world, you know, things like just to make sure that the gearing was bob on. You know, I just made sure that when I accelerated I wasn't going to be spinning like you know, a bitch kind of thing and redlining, and I also didn't want it so that in first gear that I'd start off and I'd be bogging down too much. The final gear you can kind of alter yourself if you can get somewhere where there's a nice long straight, just to see how if you need to lengthen it, if you're going to max out too much. What I normally do is once I only took it a drive for about a minute or so just while I tested these things. Then what I normally do is I've got to the rivals section, find one of my ghosts and race the ghost. Now as you can see, I've already put the Sirocco on because, like I said, I'd already done this session and Twitch cut it short for some reason. I have no idea why. And originally it was my Ford Fiesta here, and when I raced my Sirocco, we actually beat the Fiesta. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to run the car again against the Sirocco Ghost. Now this is what I normally do when I'm just doing those few final tweaks, but also if my car, I'm building my car aiming at beating one of my friends or whatever on the rivals board, it'll give me a good idea if I've got too much grip, or you know, if the Forza Aero is hindering it too much, if it's a speed track, or if I need to swap a few things around because it's just not enough power. This is where I'm going to find out if I need to alter the build of my car. But also, if I don't need to alter the build of my car, this is also where I'm going to find out if I need to fine-tune it any more than what I've already done. You know, if the back sliding on you too much, I can increase the rear aero, that kind of thing. If the car's not turning in as quick, I can play with the anti-roll bars. You know, I can play with the front aero if I want to. So we're just going to run this Sirocco. I was quite surprised because, like I said, I only took it out on the road for about 30 seconds just to check the gears, the first gear, just to see that the back was actually sliding too much and the anti-roll bed and it needed altering. The gears ended up being quite good. Took it out onto the track, and I can't remember, I think it was within about 5 laps or something, I'd beat me Fiesta time, and I didn't feel as though it needed that much tweaking, you know, for what my purposes are in this session. So even though I've already run it, I'll run it for a few more laps. Thing is with the suspension as well, the rally suspension, you have it soft as possible because you've got so much awkward terrain to deal with, and if your suspension was just too hard like you have on the road, you'd be taking off. You know, it's like that corner just then, there was a bump there. If my suspension were too hard, I'd take off and I'd be in those trees to the right hand side. Whereas having it too soft in your road cars, you're just going to end up bouncing up and down going down the road. it can seem quite daunting to those people who don't do any tuning, you know, when you look at all those kind of figures. But a lot of the time in Horizon, you don't, you know, like I said, if you want to get from start to finish fairly quick, you don't need to read too much into it. Most of the time, the kind of settings that they give you aren't too bad. A lot of the time, if I'm... Oh, don't know what happened then. A lot of the time, if I'm going to fine-tune the settings, it's because I'm just basically running a rival against one of my friends just to see if there is anything more I can get out of the car, or if I need to alter the build, or if I've taken that car to its limit. That happened today, actually. Somebody did a rival against me. He beat my time, I beat him, he beat me again, but the car I was using, I'd taken it as far as I could possibly go, so I had to swap the car. And there was nothing more I could do really with the tune to actually get more out of it. I just couldn't get that vehicle to go any quicker. I'd near enough done the best racing lines I could. So that's the only times I really do some major fine tweaking, when I'm attacking the rivals. I thought I'd missed it then. What I would say also is, just like previous Forzas, make sure you run a few laps. You will find that you might be able to beat your rival if you're racing a rival within 2 laps, if it's a circuit one. Well, obviously the point to point, you know, there's not a lot you can do, it's just get from start to finish. But the circuit ones, you will find that after a couple of laps, about 3 laps or so, that your tyres suddenly will start to perform a little bit better. Oh, that was bad. Too busy thinking about if I've altered anything on the car since I did that session, because I don't seem to be able to get as close to my Ghost. I think the only thing I did when I was talking you through the build was increase the rear aero. Oh, I don't believe it. Oh yeah, I mustn't have done anything. It was quite close that time. Yes, using the rewind button. One thing I don't like to do is help myself around the corners with the use of the walls. Oh, I'm just not with it this time round. I ended up I braked on that corner when I shouldn't, so I ended up turning in too early. I just completely forgot I was supposed to drive this course. I'm still wondering why Twitch only recorded half my last session. And this is terrible. This is just terrible. Take it back. Try and see if we can do a clean lap. Oh, I thought I was going to get a clean lap in then. This has not been one of my better days of driving. I'm going to call it a day though. We'll finish it off. But yeah, if like I was driving then and I was finding the back end was sliding too much, I'd already sorted my anti-roll bars. I suppose the rear anti-roll bar could go down a tad. I'd already softened the dampening and rebound. I could probably increase the Forza Aero if I found that the front just wasn't turning as much as I wanted. You know, I could increase again. I could increase the anti-roll bar. I could increase the front aero to help with the turning. It could be that it's not turning that great because I've got too much rear downforce. Numerous things. It's just all trial and error most of the time. But you know, if you've got any questions, feel free to send a PM. Like I said, there's other tuners out there who are far better than me. It's just that I prefer to tune my own vehicles, and I don't seem to do too badly in them. Just have a look where it ended up. Oh, there you go, 6th place. It's not too bad. Anyhow, that's it from me. Hope this might have helped you ever so slightly. Till next time, bye bye.